Good afternoon and welcome to MyS Focus Activity 10 to 13, US versus UK. I'm Terry from the MyS Florence Via Baracca School, and I am from the US. I'm from the West Coast, Seattle. And today I'm co-teaching with Sarah.
Hi, everybody. Like Terry, I teach in the Florence Baracca School. So we are colleagues, though we haven't seen each other in person for what seems like about 20 years. But we're still seeing each other virtually. I, unlike Terry, am from the UK. So I'm English from a small town in the centre of England, very typically English with English pubs and the kind of old-fashioned English cottages in a place called Nottingham in the countryside. Whereas Terry, I believe you're from the West Coast, if I'm not wrong. You from the West Coast?
West Coast from Seattle, all the way in the northwest, almost to Canada. But I'm curious, the people who have joined us out there, tell us your name and where you were from. And have you ever been to the US or to the UK? So join us. The more you participate, the better it is for everybody. Help us help you, and it's a lot more fun. It makes the time go by a lot faster.
Okay. Morning, Roberto.
Roberto, the topic is level 10 to 13. So even if you're at about a level 9, it should be okay. What's your level and where are you from, Roberto? And the others, I see we have someone else out there. So tell us your name and where you're from. And have you ever been to the US or to the UK? Sarah, have you ever been?
I was going to ask you the same thing. I've been to the US. I've been to the US for work before. When I worked in a different job, I went to Chicago. I have also been on holiday to New York, the typical 5-day New York trip, and I've also toured the West Coast, but from Los Angeles up to San Francisco. And then we visited Portland on the West Coast because my friend had relatives there, and we flew from San Francisco to Portland, and then we went back through the national parks. So Grand Canyon, Utah, around there it was about it was maybe 1 month, I think, of traveling around. I was 16. It was a long time ago.
Wow, that's a beautiful trip, though. I love the drive. I've driven the coast from Seattle all the way down to Los Angeles, actually all the way down to San Diego. And it's a beautiful drive. So Roberto, level 10, near Viterbo, welcome. We have some others with us, and tell us your name and where you are from. So Sarah, you were asking if I had ever been to the UK.
Yeah.
I have only been to London. I've been there 3 different times, but I keep saying I'm going to go and I'm going to see other places, but there's so much to see and do in London that I never make it past London.
You have to fly to a different place. If you fly to London, you only stay in London. But if you go to Manchester or you fly to a different airport, then you have to see something different. So that's your error. You always fly to the same place. So you have to fly to different places.
Good advice. Thank you. Next time I will do that. So I'm just curious if Roberto or anyone else has any examples before we begin. If you have any examples of differences between the languages we use, it's all English, but different, either different vocabulary or different ways that we use different grammar points between the US and the UK. Because Sarah, I've been shocked being here in Italy and making friends and getting to know people from the UK. I have been really shocked at some of the differences linguistically.
Yeah, me too. I think also teaching, co-teaching together on webinars. If you work with the English people who are from England, then generally we understand each other. But sometimes when I co-teach with my American colleagues, like Terry, like Jane as well, who's American, we have some times when it's very it's a bit confusing because we speak the same language but then we don't, so there are several examples of where we're different.
Wow. Okay. So Veronica, welcome, Veronica. She has been to the US, to New York. Veronica would say, I fell in love with New York. And this May, I would have gone to the US again for a month. But because of the coronavirus, I'm not going to
leave.
live. Oh, leave. Oh my God.
Maybe to leave.
I read it and I just literally. So if you say I'm not going to live, yes, that's completely different. I'm not going to leave. I'm not going to go. Okay. I went to London also 3 times. I agree, Veronica. I love London, but I will have to go other places, I think.
I have a question for Veronica. Which is better, New York or London?
London.
Oh, you think so? Well, let's see whether Veronica has a preference between London and New York. Terry's not from New York, so you can't offend her. And I'm not from London. I'm from Nottingham, so you can't offend me. But no, I'm just curious as whether you prefer London or not, or New York.
Now, if you asked me which is better, London or San Francisco, that would be difficult.
Veronica prefers New York.
Okay.
Traitor, Veronica.
All right, so let's see what we've got here today. The US versus the UK. We're going to talk about some spelling, the dreaded U, spelling and grammar differences, vocabulary differences, and cultural differences and traditions. Okay. Now, hi, Anna from near Milan. We're just talking about, have you ever been to the UK or the US? Now, Veronica, if you mean that in New York you feel at home, you don't feel out of your element, maybe? Do you think I'm reading that correctly, Sarah?
Yeah, I've got 2 ones. I feel at home, or it's like home. So Veronica is from Viterbo, if I remember rightly. So for me, I would say you can't say it's like home, because I think New York is very different from Viterbo. So it's not like as in similar to where you're from. But if you feel at home, it means that you feel happy and safe and comfortable, and you fit in, if you like, with the people there. So maybe you feel at home.
Roberto is from Viterbo, but he's leaving us. He has to go to lunch. Well, thank you for joining us, even briefly, Roberto. No, Veronica didn't say. She said she's from Italy, but she didn't say which city.
Where? Okay. So yeah, it depends. If you think that New York is similar to your home or where you're from, if it's like Milan or something, you say, well, it's similar to it. It's like home, but otherwise, I feel at home. I would use. I feel at home. Yeah. So yeah, perfect. Thanks, Veronica. And Anna has been to the UK, but never been to the US. Very good. Okay. So maybe you have to try after this lesson, you will have to think about going to the US to see if you can spot the differences between us.
All right. Bye, Roberto. Thank you. All right. So let's jump into this lesson. Would you like to introduce our topic, Sarah?
Yeah, sure. Spelling differences. Try to guess which spellings are British and which are American. So we have a list of words on the right, and I'll just read those words for you. Favorite, jewelry, center, aging, cancelled, theatre, organization, color, catalogue, and license. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Terry, but in terms of pronunciation, I think we say them in exactly the same way, right?
These words we do. I was thinking that as you were reading, the pronunciation is identical. But the spelling is different. So I'm wondering, Veronica and Anna, Roberto has left us. Someone else, there are some other people with us. So tell us your name and where you're from and join us. Tell us which spelling is here. So favorite, is this the UK or the US spelling of favorite? So in the UK spelling, you Brits, you English people, seem to favor different letters than we do in the American spelling. So
I think that generally the difference between the UK and the US is the US, in my book, and I don't want to insult you, but the Americans tend to be lazy because you don't like using very many letters. So generally, the Americans don't like using letters where they don't need to. Whereas in English, we tend to have these silent letters much more frequently than in America. That's my kind of take on the spelling differences.
Not only am I not offended, but I have said the same thing many times. Americans are inherently lazy, especially when it comes to things like grammar and spelling. It's a travesty. So, all right. So, in the UK, there's a U where we would never in America put a U. And then there's this other thing, and it's not that we use less letters, but we like to throw in that Z where you guys use an S.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And that's something I don't understand why we changed that. Why? All right, so play along with us. Tell us if the spelling is UK or US. So the first one, I've already given it away, I think. That extra, well, not extra to you, but the OU in favorite is the UK spelling. Now, what about jewelry?
All I know is that the spelling of jewelry in the UK is extremely difficult. And it's the one time when I think the spelling of the US for it is much more appropriate, because I can never spell the the UK one.
I've seen both so many times that honestly, when I have to write this word, I get anxious because I can't spell it. I get confused between the two. So this one being, as you said, the simple one is definitely the US. Now, what about center? This looks like the Italian spelling. Well, centro. This looks more like the Italian spelling to me than the English spelling.
And also what's interesting is that a lot of the English, so the UK, the British English words, come from Latin, or they come from France, or they come from our European colleagues. So sometimes the spelling is more similar to the Latin root than it is with the Americans. The American tends to be one step further away from the Latin root, let's say, because Latin root being centrum, if you like, with the at the end, and so we took our word from Latin, and by the time it ended up in the US, it probably was more on how you said it So the spelling arrived because of the way that you pronounced it, rather than the Latin origin that it came from when it came from Britain.
I never thought about that, but I think you're absolutely right. So this
I don't know
next
if I am right, but
well, it makes sense. So let's go with your theory. I like it. Now, this next word, though, I am sorry, I have to say that the American spelling makes more sense, given that usually if we add ing to a word that ends with e, having, for example, we drop the e. So for me, this one, I have to say, the lazy American spelling for me makes more sense.
I'd agree with you completely, because there's another word, for example, if you look at rage, meaning, great anger, we would put raging. We wouldn't put raging with an E. So I don't know why. I have no idea.
Interesting. All right. So the next one is definitely the lazy American spelling. And it's kind of like traveled. In America, we do the same thing. But I always spell it the British way. And I always had teachers correcting me. And it's just something I could never get my mind around, that why aren't there two L's? There should be two L's. All right. So what about the next one? I think this is, why aren't Veronica, Anna, the rest of you, play along with us? Tell us, is the spelling in the column UK or US? So shall we just reveal the rest of these?
I think we would just go through. Theatre is similar to one that we've seen already. We saw the UK spelling before. And so Veronica, if you're referring to theatre, actually theatre is the US. So the UK spelling would be more similar to centre, whereas the US spelling is the way that you say it, like it's almost how it sounds.
So organization. I think that in America, I think that we put the Z because that's the way it sounds, organization.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know why you do it. It's just one of those things. And you say Z, not Z.
We say Z. Exactly.
Yeah. We say Z.
I know.
XYZ. Yeah.
Another difference right there. But with that S, organization. But it's organization.
Yeah,
right?
The pronunciation is the same. Organization. So.
All right. How about color? What a simple word, color.
Lazy.
All right. So let's reveal these. And now what I want people to do, if you can, so you can see here the first word, favorite. That's the UK English spelling. Give us the US English spelling. It's almost the same. I don't understand why we had to go and just make these little changes. So
I have a question for you. While the people watching, if you can fill in the missing words in the UK and the US. But yeah, my question is, when you were at school, Terry, did you have spelling lessons as part of your curriculum?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We were always, from the beginning, from first grade until sixth grade, every Monday we were given a new list of words, and there was a test every Friday. Was it the same in England?
Yeah, it was. It was the same in England, because I was talking to some Italian friends about whether they have the same sort of thing in Italy, and I don't think it's quite as necessary, if you like, because Italian is much more sort of written how it's spoken once you understand the difference between your chi, cha, ka, ku, and all that with the C's and the H's, which is very complicated. Whereas in the UK, I remember, until the age of 11, we had spelling tests every week. And it was some people found it easy, some people found it difficult. I'm lucky. Naturally, I spell without a problem. My mother, terrible. My father, really good. So I take after my father for spelling. And did you struggle with spelling, or did you find it easy?
I found it very easy. I don't know why, but I do appreciate the beauty, the beauty in the simplicity of the Italian language, in that each letter has usually only one sound, except for we do have this nya and the k and the ch and then the s still poses some problems for pronunciation for me, because one S sounds more like Z, whereas two Z's sounds like a TS, whereas that still causes me a little confusion. But for the most part, the Italian language is spelled just like it sounds. Not that way in English. All right, so nobody wants to spell with us today. So let's just go ahead and give everyone and talk just for a second about some of these in particular. So jewelry, jewelry in British English.
Jewelry, pronunciation, jewelry.
So I can understand how the original Americans went, jewelry. Okay, let's just make it like that. But
I have one thing that I wanted to say, actually. The last word, license. Now, in the UK, this is a big difference between the US and can lead to some problems. And it's the same. There's another word as well, which we use, which is advice and license. Those are the two that come to mind really straight off. And we have advise and we have license. So we have the different things that we have: advice and license, which exists, and we also have advise and license, but the meaning changes in the UK. And I don't think you have this difference, if I'm right, Terry, in the
we
US.
have advice with the C and advise with the S. And the meaning between those changes: advice is, I want to give you some advice. Okay. Advise, I need to advise you of your rights.
Yeah. So you've got the difference between the noun and the verb.
Exactly. So, but only one spelling of license as a verb and as a noun. Now, is your C and S on license, does that change between verb and noun?
Yep. Follows the same pattern as advice. So the license is your noun, and to license something is to is used as the verb. So advice and license are nouns. Advise and license are the verbs.
Now we have the advice and advise, but license only one spelling. And I have to admit that it's one of the problem words I have. I always write it 2 or 3 times and erase the S, then put C, then erase the C and put S. This is one that has always been a problem word for me. Interesting. All right. So moving from spelling differences. Oh, Sarah, grammar differences. I had no idea until about 2 months ago of some of the more particular specific grammar differences between the UK and the US English. And I understand why it's even more difficult for foreign language learners to understand English.
Yes, it's confusing, and it's interesting that whenever I teach this focus, or there's some other focuses which look at the differences between the US and the UK, I find myself learning because I don't know, because obviously my contact is with generally with the British side of the grammar and not the US side. So until you work closely with the US teachers, you don't really ever realize that maybe there's this difference, which is it's not wrong, it's just American. Which is, or it's not wrong, it's just British if you look at it from the other side of the coin.
Well, and I have worked at other schools before coming to MIS, and I remember once finishing a lesson, and this was some years ago, and it was right after I started teaching at a new school, and the director of the school had been watching my lesson, and she came in at the end and she said, "No, I didn't want to say anything in front of your students, but do we need to do some lessons? Because what you just taught was incorrect." And aghast, I said, "What was it?" And I can't remember what it was, but I literally got on the internet and pulled it up on one of my American grammar sites. And she said, "Oh, well, God, in British English, we would never." And so there are some big differences. And so let's take a look at some grammar points. And I want to tell students, it's okay if you use the US English. It's okay if you use the UK English. The one thing I would say is try to stay with one or the other. Would you agree, Sarah, or do you think it's okay to kind of mix and mingle?
I think ultimately, if you are preparing for an exam, and you need to prepare a written exam, either with Cambridge or some of the other exam boards, if you change your spelling, if you change your grammar from the UK to the US, you will be penalized, because effectively you either do it the UK way or you do it the US way in exam conditions. If you're speaking, ultimately, there may be some confusion that you could cause if you switch between the two, and I can't think of an example, but maybe there is something. Maybe like if you use the subway, and you talk about I went to the subway, or something like that. In the UK, the subway is a sandwich shop. In the US, it's the underground. So it could cause confusion if the rest of the time you always use UK language, and then suddenly you talk about the subway meaning the underground, then you could cause some confusion. But ultimately, it's up to you, I think. Obviously, if you've got different teachers and one teacher's American, one teacher's English, or British, then obviously you maybe get taught different things. So it's not the case of being wrong; it's a case of making sure you're aware of when it's appropriate if you've got an issue.
I think so. And I think to your point also, if you are preparing for a Cambridge exam, if you are preparing for an IELTS, anything that's really based on that CEFRA, the Central European Framework, I think that it's probably more important also to stick as closely as possible to the British English.
Oh, really? I don't know. They say that they don't penalize, so there's no reason, if you've only ever studied American English, there's no reason that you would have be penalized for speaking American English. So no, there's certainly Cambridge certainly make a point of saying American English is acceptable, British English is acceptable. So, but you can't mix. So that's the big thing that certainly Cambridge look for.
Good to know. All right, so grammar difference. Sarah, what would you say if you wanted to ask if your friend has a sister? This, for me, was when I first started studying the British English. Why would you do that? Why do you?
Well, you see, I find this difficult because I suppose, do you have a sister or have you got a sister? But I actually say both. And so now I don't know which one is the US and which is the UK. Have you got a sister? Probably, I would say.
British English.
What do you say?
Do you have a sister?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, we would probably use, have you got a sister?
So I would say, do you have a sister? You would say, have you got a sister? Now, would you say? I would say.
I was going to say what?
To respond, I would say, yes, I have a sister. What would you say?
If you say, have you got a sister? Yes, I do.
Okay. If you
yes,
want
yes, I have. Yeah. Have you got a sister? Yes, I have.
Okay. I would say, yes, I have a sister. Yeah, I wouldn't say I have got a sister.
Okay. Okay.
So for me,
would you say, for example, bicycle? If you asked me the question about a bicycle.
Do you have a bike?
Yeah, I say, have you got a bike? I would say, have you got a bike, for possession?
No, see, to me, have is the possessive. Yes, I have a bike. So interesting. All right.
No.
So how about this one? And Veronica and Anna and anyone else, you can choose your team. So the UK and US are playing a football match. Of course, the UK is winning and the US is losing. Yay. Now I would be like, woohoo! Okay. So what would you say in the US? What verb would you use? Now this, to me, this is something again that I just cannot. I can't understand it, but now that I've been hearing it for so long, it causes me great confusion. Because now I don't know what to say. So,
well,
for me in the US, a team is obviously a singular noun. So I would say the other team is winning. Sarah, UK?
Well, because generally there's more than one person in a team, you look at it from that perspective, you say the other team are losing.
But the
just like, for example, staff. So if you would say the staff at the company are unhappy. Because the staff, there's more than one person in it.
But staff being a singular noun, I would say the staff is unhappy, but the employees are unhappy.
Employees we agree on, because employees are plural. Yeah. But for the UK, I think if you use these collective nouns, in theory, grammatically, it's incorrect to say the other team are losing. Grammatically, it's incorrect. But actually, when you have a noun that's a singular noun but refers to more than one person, in general, in the UK, when we're speaking, we would use are. So the staff are really unhappy. The team are playing really badly.
So thinking of collective nouns, wait a second. Sorry.
So that said, I'm just thinking about group. The group, the group are unhappy. Yeah, you see, the group are unhappy. It is, it's collective noun. It's nouns that refer to more than one person in it. Then you could use are, although it's grammatically incorrect.
Now, would you do the same with collective nouns regarding animals? For example, referring to bees, the swarm is...
The swarm are coming closer. The swarm is coming closer. Maybe not. I don't know. I think the most obvious ones are things like the team, the staff, the group maybe as well. I don't say swarm of bees and talking afterwards very often, so I don't know what I would say. The swarm is coming closer. Probably use the is, to be fair.
Yeah. Interesting. We use the same way if it's collective, if it's, well, the crowd. What would you say, the crowd?
The crowd were shouting. Yeah, the crowd were clapping. The crowd was clapping. You could use, Grammatically, for me, it should be singular. But yeah, so if, as Anna said here, the team are very happy, in theory, you can use it as a plural. Though grammatically speaking, I still would probably, if I was writing, I would probably use the singular format, because in writing you're more correct. But certainly, speaking wise, you can use the plural. Yeah.
Now I'm confused. Okay, so if we say the team, the group, the staff, if we're speaking, we should use the plural, but if we're writing, we can use the singular?
Me personally, I'm with you and the Americans in the fact that team is a singular noun, therefore it should always be used with the is. However, in British English, we have this exception which basically says, well, if it's a group, then it's are.
Okay, so if it's a group of people, we use the plural. Okay, I think I can. Okay, Anna, are you with us? Veronica, are you with us? Because I'm getting confused now too. All right. Now, oh, okay. Now, what is sweaty? What is sweaty?
Me in the summer in Florence.
From June until about October, me, just completely wet. All right. So, oh yes, Anna, Veronica. So this is a big difference between English, British English and American English. And I completely agree with and prefer the British English form. So,
is it the same with coffee? Is the same confusion with coffee?
we use the same verb as you do for coffee, I think.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Which
So-
is why the US one is incongruous, because effectively the verb that you use would indicate that you're going to move it from where it is.
Yes. Which after my whole life, I said it my whole life, that's how it is. It makes sense. And after being in Italy and hearing the Italian way to say it, that, yeah, I can't take the shower. It's affixed. It's part of my house. How can I take a shower? I can't. But what would you say, Sarah?
You have a shower.
Now, do you say have a coffee?
Yep. Have a coffee, have a shower. If you take a coffee, my next question would be, where are you taking the coffee to?
Exactly.
Where are you going?
No,
I'm taking the coffee to my boss.
Exactly. The actual movement. But no, we say have a coffee. I'd like to have a coffee. Let's go have a coffee. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go take a coffee. Yeah.
That's definitely the Italian way that for me still, it's like, I don't know why you do that.
Yeah. Well done, Anna. Yeah. Have a shower in the UK. Exactly.
Excellent. All right. Now some vocabulary differences. And this really, these differences we're talking about, these are just the beginning. There are so many for travel, for life, it's amazing. Okay. Oh, now this one surprised me the first time I saw it. So clockwise, the clock moves clockwise. It goes forward, right? So not clockwise, but the opposite. Counterclockwise in American English. Whoops. What would you say in British English?
Yeah, counterclockwise. I didn't understand counterclockwise when I heard counterclockwise. You can guess the meaning, but we never say counterclockwise. We say anti-clockwise, because it's the opposite.
Opposite. Oh my gosh.
Anti-clockwise. Yeah. So you have anti-clockwise and clockwise.
But if you think about counterclockwise, counterintelligence, it means against or opposite.
Okay. That's counterintelligence is a word that has come into the UK from America. Put money on it, because counter for me, the counter is where you pay for your goods in a shop.
Also, yes.
You pay at the counter. You have where you order your meat. If you go to the supermarket in the deli, you stand at the counter and there's a lady who works behind the counter and you ask. That's a counter for me is a noun where you go and you buy things.
It's also the part in your kitchen where you cook, where you prepare. Like for me, when I make pizza, I prepare the dough on the counter.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, we use worktop. We have worktop.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
See, more differences.
So yeah, the counter generally would be in the shop. You don't have a counter in your house. You have a worktop. You talk about worktop.
Now, see, we have a counter. We go to the counter at the shop. We have a countertop, worktop, countertop. We wouldn't call it a worktop, though.
We do.
More differences. Now, house. In America, I had a beautiful house. I would go home after work and sit in my garden with a glass of wine. How about you in Nottingham, Sarah? What was your house like?
Yeah, in Nottingham, we had a house again, but in the UK, most people live in houses, except for potentially people in London, because in London it's more expensive and the space is smaller. And in the big cities, so maybe Manchester, in Birmingham, in the city centre, then you wouldn't live in a house. You would live in something which is part of a building, if you like, and you'd have lots of them on top of each other. And they would be what we would call in the UK, we would call them flats.
Oh, an apartment.
So a flat, which in you guys will talk about apartments. But yeah, but no, we have a flat.
All right, and autumn. So do you only have one word for autumn in British English?
Yes.
Autumn is only autumn?
Yes. There are 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, winter. Autumn.
From the time I was 4 years old, my grandmother and every school in my long history of schools in America, it was spring, summer, fall, and winter.
Well, I have a question. What do you use as the adjective? So if you want to say today is very, and in English, British English, we would say today is very autumnal. So it's a very autumnal day. What do you use as your adjective? You can't say today is a very fallen day. It doesn't make sense.
It's very fall-like. The winter is very fall.
Oh, right. So use fall-like. Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In English, we have the adjective from autumn, autumnal.
Now, see, when I hear autumnal, I think only of the autumnal equinox, September 21st.
Okay, so autumnal does exist in American,
but only in reference to that
equinox.
Equinox. So now this last one for me was really interesting because I understood it in a certain sense, because one of my favorite things to make and definitely to eat was always fish and chips. But I never understood why it was called that, because the fish was always served with French fries.
Yeah.
So this gets us. So let's talk about potatoes for a minute, if that's okay. So in America, we have potato chips, which come in a bag. They are dry and crunchy and salty. Those are potato chips. That's not what I eat with my fish. I eat French fries. So
very
how
true.
is this in British English?
So it's you've got chips, which are your hot, chopped up, fried pieces of potato that you eat with chips. So which you eat with fish, excuse me. So you've got fish and chips, and they are served hot, and they're definitely not in your plastic bag that you get from the supermarket. So we have chips with the hot thing, fish and chips. And then we have probably the most difficult word in the world for anybody to say, which is crisps. And crisps are your American potato chips. So let me write crisps in the chat for you. As I say, it's one of the most difficult words.
Did it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so crisps.
Crisps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Fall, exactly, yeah. Anna. Good. Fall and crisps. But crisps are like our potato chips. Our French fries are your chips.
Chips. Yeah. So in English, we talk about chips and crisps. And in the US, you talk about French fries and crisps.
French fries and potato chips.
Oh, do you have to specify that they're potato?
We would never just say chips because we also have corn chips. We have tortilla
sweet potato chips.
Potato chips.
Okay, so you have to specify the type of chip. Okay.
You do?
In England, no. Chips are always potato, and they're always hot and served with other things, or you get them from the chip shop because there's a chippy. The chippy in the UK, which is the best shop in the world. The chippy was the place where we used to go, especially when we were younger, maybe we were 16, 17. And the chippy served chips and fish, and sausages and things like that. But yeah, the chippy was where you went to get your bag of chips. But it's the hot chips in a bag which you eat with ketchup, with salt, not the chips that you buy in America. So very different.
Okay. So my question now, so because we have potato chips, which are your crisps, what do you call the things that are made of corn and they're like little triangles? They're like shaped like potato chips, but they're made of corn that you dip in salsa.
That's an unfair question, but they would be called tortilla chips.
Oh, okay.
Tortilla chips.
We would call them, yeah. So we would call them tortilla chips or corn chips, which is why, because if you've got tortilla chips and corn chips, you have to specify potato chips.
Yeah. But you see, the reason why I think we call them tortilla chips is because they've come from America, and they weren't origin here. So otherwise they should effectively be called tortilla crisps. But maybe crisps have to be potato. Actually, no, maybe crisps have to be made of potato. I don't know. I need to investigate further the history of crisps.
Okay.
Maybe they have, I don't know. No, because you can get vegetable crisps. All of the rage at the moment in the UK is vegetable crisps. And vegetable crisps are carrot, beetroot, parsnip, all the root vegetables that they treat in the same way as potatoes. And they put them in a bag and you buy them from the supermarket. And they're called vegetable crisps.
So you take something completely healthy and good for you and fry it. That must have come from America.
I don't know. That's all Scotland. They fry everything in Scotland as well.
Ah, do they? Okay. Maybe we got it from the Scots because we can take anything in America and destroy it with the deep fryer. We're really good at that. So my last question for you, can I ask you something before we run out of time? You wrote this word chippy. Now, in reference to a chip shop and the place where you go to get your chips.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that I had heard that word used in a different way. Like she's a bit of a chick. No.
I have no idea what that means.
Okay.
Not from where I'm from.
Okay. So no, I have a friend, and he uses a lot of. He comes from the UK, and he uses a lot of slang, and I could swear that I heard that word used in a little. I will have to ask him later, because now I'm going. Anyway. Thank you for this great. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for this great information, Sarah. I feel like I've learned a lot more about British English today. And nice to see you virtually. And I'll let you close out for us, if that's okay.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for participating, and good to see you online. Hope you're surviving the quarantine as best you can. Stay safe, and we hope to see you back for another webinar in the future. Thanks very much, guys. Bye-bye.